In this video, I will explain the main differences between Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager, and what does it mean for your tracking setup. Hey, my name is Julius and welcome to Analytics Mania YouTube channel. If you're new here, I teach people how to work with Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics. So if you want to stay up to date with Google Analytics 4, consider subscribing. If you are just starting with Google Tag Manager, you might be wondering what is the relationship between Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager. Honestly, this is a good question and many beginners have it. In this video, I will explain the differences between two platforms, how they work, and then finally, how does this affect your conversion tracking in Google Analytics. Let's take a look. First, let's take a look at how we used Google Analytics before Google Tag Manager was popular. So let's say that you have a website and you want to track how your visitors are behaving on that website. So in that case, you have to ask a developer to install Google Analytics tracking code directly into the source code of the website. And based on the configuration that was done by your developer, Google Analytics tracking code will start sending data such as page views, clicks, purchases, and some other events to Google Analytics servers. And then after a while, you will start seeing some data in the Google Analytics reports. In fact, some businesses are doing their tracking setups this way till this day. And speaking of the reports, they might look something like this. This data is possible because Google Analytics tracking code is added on a website, and that tracking code sends some data to Google Analytics servers. In fact, speaking of what can add Google Analytics tracking codes to the website, as I've said, the answer is either a developer, but also it can be done with some plugin. For example, if you're working with a very popular e-commerce platform, let's say WooCommerce, Magento, Shopify, or something else, then it is possible that either of those platforms have built-in solutions that automatically send data to Google Analytics, or they support some plugins that can be quickly installed and those plugins do the job. However, when it comes to the cooperation with developers are very busy. And in many cases, they will not have enough time to quickly implement some tracking code that you need for your analytics or marketing. And speaking of the plugins, they are not very flexible because if you want to have some customization, some modification, you will not be able to do that because the plugin functionality is quite static. Unless, of course, again, you involve your developers and they would try to edit the code of the plugin. That is why these problems and limitations gave birth to tools that are called tag management tools. And Google Tag Manager is one of them. So if you have a website, you could install Google Tag Manager and you could then, with Google Tag Manager's interface, manage when certain tracking codes will be fired. So for example, you can configure Google Tag Manager to fire your Google Analytics tracking codes, and then that tracking code will send a particular event that you have configured to Google Analytics servers. And in fact, this applies not only to Google Analytics. You can also use Google Tag Manager for tools like Google Ads, Facebook Pixel, or something else. In a nutshell, Google Tag Manager lets you easily manage tracking codes, and Google Analytics is one of those tracking codes. So Google Tag Manager does not replace Google Analytics. Google Tag Manager enhances the process how you work with Google Analytics, or actually how you collect data with Google Analytics. So if we directly compare GTM versus Google Analytics accepts data. Then after that data is accepted and processed, Google Analytics will start showing some data in reports, and you can slice that data from different angles. Or in other words, you can analyze data with Google Analytics. Now, Google Tag Manager serves a different purpose. GTM activates the codes that send the data to tools like Google Analytics, Facebook Pixel, maybe somewhere else. Then Google Tag Manager has no reports because Google Tag Manager is not a reporting tool. It is a tool that helps you send data to some other marketing and analytics platforms. That's why GTM is part of the data collection process, not of data analysis. Then another thing that sometimes also adds some confusion is events, because you already probably are familiar with the concept of Google Analytics events, but also sometimes you might hear things like Google Tag Manager events. And they are definitely not the same thing. Here I am in the preview mode of Google Tag Manager. And if you're new to GTM, then you can enable it by clicking the preview button right here. And on the left side of the preview mode, you will see messages or events, and sometimes they are called Google Tag Manager events. So these are the moments when you can fire your tags in Google Tag Manager. By the way, if I haven't mentioned that yet, a tag is a tracking code that can be activated on a page. So here we see moments like when Google Tag Manager container loaded, when the entire page loaded. Also, if I, let's say, click on some link, you will see that link right here. And then you will see events from another page that loaded after I clicked the link. So these are Google Tag Manager events, but that does not mean that every event you see right here is sent to Google Analytics. In fact, only in small situations, only a small portion of events that are visible right here, they are somehow related to events that are sent to Google Analytics. In fact, if I click on any of the menu links on this website, and then I go to the preview mode and click this link click event, you will see that the Google Analytics 4 tag has fired. And this tag sent a Google Analytics event that will later be visible in the debug view of Google Analytics 4. And here is that event. So this is a Google Analytics event. Here we see Google Tag Manager events. And on one of the Google Tag Manager events, which was link click, we fired a tag that sent a Google Analytics event. So in total, what happened on that page is that on container loaded, we fired a Google Analytics 4 configuration tag that sent the page view event. And then on link click, we sent another Google Analytics event, which was menu link click. So we have basically on this page 2 Google Analytics events, and we have 6 Google Tag Manager events. Because for example, on window loaded, we did not fire any tags, therefore no Google Analytics events were sent. And the final question that I wanted to address in this video is what about Google Analytics conversions? Because some beginners are confused about how Google Tag Manager affects the goal or conversion configuration in Google Analytics. So let's take a look. Let's say that we have a website, we have installed Google Tag Manager on that website, and based on our configuration, Google Analytics tags are fired. Let's say that this particular tag sent a sign up event to Google Analytics servers. And then if we want to treat this event as a more important one, we can mark it as a conversion in Google Analytics 4 interface. That's why we can just toggle this switch. And then from this moment, this event will be treated as a conversion. By the way, if you want to learn more about how to configure conversions in Google Analytics 4, I have a video tutorial about that, and you will find the link to it below the video. Anyway, so it does not matter where the data is coming from. Did it come from the Google Tag Manager setup, or do you have a website where Google Analytics is implemented directly in the source code by a developer? Then that tracking code sends, let's say, the same sign-up event to Google Analytics servers, and then that event is displayed in the reports, and you can later mark it as a conversion in the Google Analytics 4 interface. So in this case, as I've said, it does not matter where the data is coming from. Is it Google Tag Manager setup? Is it hard-coded Google Analytics snippet? Is it some other server-side solution or something else? It does not matter. What matters for conversion tracking is that event is received by Google Analytics. And then after a while, after you see it in the list of all events, you can mark those events as conversions if you treat them as the more important ones. And if you want to learn more about how to configure conversions, you will find the link to another tutorial below this video. And now I hope that you have a better understanding of the differences between Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics. Now, the next logical step would be to configure your first Google Tag Manager setup. And you can learn how to do that right here. If you found this video useful, hit the thumbs up button below the video because it helps me continue working on this channel. Also, if you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager or Google Analytics 4, consider subscribing. My name is Julius, this is Analytics Mania, and I'll see you in the next video.